Welcome to the second episode of the Elephant Room. Today, we are going to be talking about blackness. What is blackness? Where was blackness 400 years ago? What is it now? And what is blackness going to look like 400 years from now? My name is Mike Truth, the Nomad, aka Boogie McCab, but today you guys can call me Boogie. And I'd like to thank Get Vocal for this platform, Indie Radio, Kinte, and my co-host LA is going to be joining us a bit later on today. So I welcome you all, Shannon, Sybil, and everybody else that's in the room. Let's have a great show. Hey, welcome to the room. Welcome to the room, Dre. How you doing? I hope everything's going good. So today we are going to be talking about blackness. What is blackness? See, like blackness is it's actually a colonial term that was devised to basically bring forth a whole lot of division and separation on the journey to conquer the world, basically. And I think a lot of us we basically we've accepted the concept of blackness, and we basically lived out what they've ascribed blackness to be. And when you look at history, basically the distinction between whiteness and blackness is that blackness is associated with the lesser. Well, 400 years ago, we're talking, it was associated with the lesser, while whiteness was supposed to represent, the supremacy, something that's more dominant. And so everything then during those eras, so they had basically the enslaved people that came to the Americas and the Caribbean and such, because of their skin color and also the classism that was involved. They were basically projected the term blackness to them, while as whiteness was supposed to be that is superior, better, and whatnot. But if you just go back a bit further than that, when you look back at the history of African history, you realize that there were a lot of great civilizations, a lot of great kingdoms that existed prior to basically so I think the actual concept of blackness, it wasn't yet coined in those times, because you're around a whole bunch of people that look like you. So there were different types of distinctions that people would use, and it wasn't actually in terms of whiteness or blackness. It was much more so, how can I say, cultural traditions, religions, languages, and things like that. So it was only until the Europeans they came in that they introduced the whole notion of blackness. And then, so from that point on, I think people really just accepted and adopted this narrative. And if you look back 400 years ago too, you would not want to be black. Black people were enslaved, whipped, sheesh, what, you name it, anything that was negative was associated with blackness. So there's you have it as it's basically, how can I say this? Kinte, do you have any input in regards as to what blackness is for you? What blackness represents?
For me, blackness represents our people. It represents a desire to claim your roots. For me, blackness is that we're told from the beginning that our skin is our sin. Right? We're told that black isn't beautiful. We look at the 50 most beautiful people, and if there is somebody black, they usually are barely passing. You know what I'm saying? So even if we get one like a Idris Elba or even a Lupita or something like that, it's like one, but the other 49, no. You know what I'm saying? So we have to deal with that on a certain level, that you're not what's in, you're not what's popping, right?
It's just acceptable.
Right. We had a little moment when Wesley Snipes, kind of brought us back. It's
Yeah.
like,
Team, Team
that,
Dark Skin, as they say, right?
right. And that era is over. Okay. So blackness to me is us accepting the beauty within and understanding that, I don't want to sound like I don't want to sound like I'm just saying something, but we do come from kings and queens. We started society. We're very important to the fabric of humanity. And blackness also means that we were with one with the land. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We understand nature. So
Mm-hmm.
if you think about this earth, when we were in control,
Mm-hmm.
the world wasn't dying. You know what I'm saying? The planet
Right?
wasn't dying. So I think in order for us to get in touch with our blackness, or what blackness should be to us, is to accept that yes, we've had a horrible history in the last 400 and so years, but
Mm-hmm.
we need to rely on the previous, before that, and post in the last 400 years. Think about this: all the things that's happened to us, from slavery, Jim Crow, Reconstruction to now, and we're still here.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're still here. We're still here. We're hanging on by a thread, but we're still here.
It's
That's
still here.
important for us to understand, and it's important for us to say that. So blackness to me is beauty, and it's the beauty within.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'd like to welcome everybody that's in the room right now. Vet, welcome to the room. Dre, Curtis, welcome. And there's two spots available. So if you guys want to jump into this conversation, jump in. And my co-host LA, she just walked into the studio, so she'll be joining us shortly.
I was
But
about
yeah,
to warn you. I was like, somebody's in the back.
yeah, where? But yeah, so like that's the thing with blackness too, because like I think like in an early conversation with a friend of mine named Candace, she mentioned how blackness, it actually has evolved. It seems to basically be evolving, because if you look at what it was 400 years ago, like, so the narrative that the Europeans basically gave to us, and which we accepted, was that of enslavement and the lesser than. And so along with that experience, oh, there goes LA again. So along with that experience, we basically I think what's going on now is that we adapted that experience, and we didn't really know how to be as a people, because what occurred then is like, so from kings to enslavement, what occurred is basically like the breaking down of identity.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was having a conversation with LA the other time, and I was like, you know what? When you look at a lot of black people nowadays, we seem to have a case of we don't know our identities, like where we really came from, and the narrative that we have been given is that of enslavement. So then the thing of identity becomes really, really important. And the cool thing is, while I was meditating last time, I meditate a lot. The word self-awareness came up. And the cool thing with that word is that when you break it down, so self-awareness, then it's like a person gets to ask themselves, like, where am I? So the first part is like self-aware, like your location, where are you, in order to find your identity and where you are, and basically like the history of the world. And then so basically like you have the self-awareness, and then you have the self-awareness, which is yourself that you basically you carry, and the way you show up in the world. And then the spiritual aspect of self-awareness. So us as black people, for this topic here, this conversation, I think the part that we're trying to hone on the most is the location, where we are. And that's why I think we're trying to focus on where we were 400 years ago, and how that has led to us now, and basically where that's going to take us. Like and by the way, guys, like feel free to chime in. You could grab a spot. Like, there's 2 more spots. But I think that narrative, and Ken says, I don't know if you agree with me, but our narrative has been that of resilience and brilliance, because first of all, having your identity stripped away from you, like completely, and still be here and kind of function to some extent, is, remarkable. But there's a lot of traumas that has come along with that, because there's been a lot of if you look nowadays in society, there's a lot of Black people that are suffering from more mental health challenges and different various things, and they stem from traumas that basically occurred 400 years ago, and we're still living through that, trying to find like our I guess our bearings, like our handling. But
Dr. Joy DeGruy, who, if you don't know this sister, you'll fall in love with her. She does this lecture called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. There's also a book as well, and she really talks about how we haven't been able to heal since slavery, and it's this beautiful lecture. If you haven't seen it, and called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And if you haven't had an opportunity to see it, it'll blow your mind. It's amazing work, and she's an amazing individual. I would love to chop it up with her at some point. But yeah, that's.
Oh, look who we have, Miss Wade.
Hey, man, it's hard being an overnight celebrity. How's everybody doing?
Excellent.
I see we have some gun-shy people who aren't logging in to fill some spots. What's that all about? How do we have conversation without talking to each other?
Yeah. Carter, Shannon, Curtis.
Yep. Hi, nice to see you all in the room. Welcome, welcome. So what have you talked about thus far?
So we started just touching on what Blackness is and what it was 400 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we were just basically kind of looking a bit at that. And when we started off, I just wanted to touch on our history before enslavement. So talking about the African empires and who we were. And so just,
okay.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting, I just did an interview on another platform for my work, actually, which we work with a lot of disadvantaged people who are trying to go back to school, the transitional year program at the University of Toronto. And this man is interviewing me, a Black man, and I told him what we were going to be talking about. And he said he doesn't believe Blackness exists. So I was like, wow, man, they got you. They got you. And in one sense, I know what he's trying to say, in the sense that, you know, Blackness is just this social construct that's put together. But this is the real life experience that we're having. We're having a Black experience, whether or not that was constructed for me or not. It's still very much related to my opportunities. It's very much related to how I see myself. It's related to how my relationships function. There's so many aspects of, if he wants to pretend like that doesn't impact him, well, man, let me drink whatever it is that he's drinking. Because I mean, ultimately, isn't that our goal, is to try to get to a place where we can just be, we can just be people. But I don't want to take away from the fact that what this Blackness has given me all of this time, and the rich culture by which people that look like me in different monochromatic hues has been beautiful. And I don't want to take away from that by any means. So yeah, I was just shocked that he was saying that, oh, Blackness doesn't exist. And I think it's that whole idea of color blindness as well. Give me a break. This is things that are taken away. Hi, who's that, Curtis?
Yes, hey there. What's going on, everyone?
Hi, Curtis. How are you?
Curtis? Doing well.
Hey, welcome, Curtis.
I love the lights in the background. I'm a big photography person.
Yeah, I do a lot of work with video.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Did you have something to say about what I was talking about just then?
Well, just overall, not necessarily in particular to what you were doing, but I think the bigger part of our Blackness, I absolutely do believe that it exists, but I think the bigger part of it is just that we, at least growing up for me, and I'm sure I'm not alone, but it was the education, and was a huge piece of it. And I think more so nowadays we hear only of the slavery piece of it. And so a lot of people don't want to touch that, because it's it obviously hurts. It's a lot of pain attached to it, not only for us, but for the whites as well, or our counterparts, if you will. But even before slavery, and I think I came in on the tail end of the conversation, and I think you guys were talking about prior to slavery, was the schools and the universities that existed, and we come from the lineage of kings and queens and things of that nature, and that's a piece of it that's not talked about. And I think for me, as a Black man, that's where I get my power from. And it doesn't matter if I don't know them. It's just even for when Obama was president, I didn't necessarily agree with everything that he said or a lot of his policies. But my point of it is that he was a Black man that for many years that we were told no, and it was very much empowering. For me, it was.
Right.
And so I think a lot of us as Black people, we're just missing that history piece of it. And the history piece is empowering. And again, for me growing up, I didn't have a Black history. What was that? And I think for a lot of us, we've been given someone else's history.
Yes.
And we've been living out of that. And it's painful to live someone else's story. I'm a Christian, but I think about how David was trying to, David was getting ready to go to battle to fight the Philistines, and he was preparing, and yet they were saying, well, here, put Saul's armor on. And
right.
He couldn't wear someone else's armor,
Exactly.
So he had to work with what he had, which was the stone and the stones in the slingshot. Again, that's just, I think with the history piece of it is so much missing. My former years, I was a flight attendant, and I had this gentleman who was a historian and some kind of high-ranking military official, and he said the first thing that they do when a regime or forces, military forces, go in to take a country or an island or whatever they're going to take over, is that they take over the museum.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I thought that was just so powerful, but at the same time, just scary, because these are things that, the average person doesn't even think about.
Right.
And, I think the history piece, just to add to, the conversation, but the history piece is huge, and we're missing that power. And that's where we get our power from. It's nice to know that we come from a lineage of kings and queens, and you look at the, I'm in so much, I'm halfway in sports, here and there, but the point of it is that a lot of our, whether it's sports, music, whatever, we're just extraordinary people. And,
right.
To know that we come from that, whether, I'm not a musician, but, I do other things, but my point is to know that we come from this lineage of people. I mean, it's just amazing. And you hear stories of sisters and brothers who don't like their Blackness. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
And,
can you really blame them? I mean, it's good that you have that self-worth and that self-love, but I really worry about those people that aren't able to look at themselves and see that sense of pride, that love, like, being from Ghana,
mm-hmm.
you have that reinforced all the time, but being here in North America and in the diaspora,
mm-hmm.
we're constantly torn down. We're constantly swimming upstream, which, yes, it makes us resilient and strong, but we shouldn't have to be that strong.
Exactly. And to add to that effect as well, so me being from Ghana, I think that is a privilege that I've been really aware of, because I think that as I was mentioning earlier, it is so Blackness, but giving us the identity of Blackness, I think that that helps strip away our identity as kings and queens, because like I was talking about earlier, when you think about it, back in Africa during those great empires of Ghana, Kush, and Timbuktu and everything, it was all people that looked alike and just had like different ways. So like the only dividing aspect of it was much more so the cultural traditions, religions, different tribes, and different ways of living. It wasn't much so whiteness or Blackness. So when the enslaved people, they came and enslaved folks and brought them to North America, then by basically putting everybody together and putting everybody as Black together, just labeling everybody as Black, they put a limitation as to who those kings and queens were, and just like they limited that to that's Black folks right there. So when people say that it is a construct, yes, I could see that. However, though, it is a construct, and we're able to understand that we were kings and queens before that. But I don't think that white people are able to like understand.
I don't think we can understand that. It's so far removed from my experience, my lived experience. Yes, I know a brother could see me on the street and be like, my queen, and it's like, that's really nice. But, you know, I'm having a problem keeping good relationships at work. I'm having a problem raising 2 young Black men and scared to death that the police are going to kill my children. These are not the lives of kings and queens. So for me to believe that I'm a king and a queen, I need to have some type of reflection of that in my day-to-day experience. And I think that continues to further separate me. I just want to change gears a little bit because I saw that somebody was asking in the comments if we had seen the
Killer Mike.
Yeah, go ahead. You can take that.
Yeah, so I think Dre brought up the Killer Mike interview that he did with the Breakfast Club. I think Killer Mike, this guy is amazing. He is
Killer Mike for president.
Yes. that's my guy because I just love his mindset so much because like he speaks about something that I concur. It seems like during our whole struggle, to give us the goal to live our lives and to build. And so I think we actually, each of and every one of us, we have the ability and power to actually build ourselves up. And we just wait on the system to allow us permission, which is like an enslaved mindset right there, where because we've been stripped away and really broken down generation after generation, it's like a learned helplessness thing.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it's like kill him that. Let me see. So he said, I was listening to him, and then Envy is the type to leave the hood to improve his own life. Killer Mike is looking to remain in the hood and develop it. Yes,
that's exactly the distinction that
caught
my eye. Go ahead.
You know what's interesting? I think, and I seen the interview, and I really enjoyed it. I think what's interesting is that for me, like I said, for me personally, I grew up around a lot of whites, but it never prevented me from looking back though. And when I say looking back, and I'm not meaning any kind of negative connotation, but still curious.
Okay.
You know, so it never had taken that away. You know, again, growing up in schools and called the N-word and just stuff. You know, but it never taken my desire away to look around. And I think that I'll just use an example. For instance, like the movie, I think what is it? The Pursuit of Happiness. I think it's called. Yeah.
You talked about that.
I think is it the one with Will Smith
or
yeah. Yeah. But I'm talking about the author though, or the Chris gentleman was it? The book was about. The movie was about.
Yeah, Chris Garner.
Yeah, Chris Garner. Yeah, and how I seen in an interview that he had done with someone. I can't remember who it was, but he talked about how he looked at the vehicle. You know, when in a movie they show where he looked at his vehicle, he says, "How would you get that?" He asked the investor, the stockbroker, and I brought that up for a reason because I think that a lot of us as Black people, and, we can say people in general, but I think primarily as Black people, is that if you want to change something, you have to be able to look at the very thing that's paining you, that causes you pain. Though it's hard, it's tough. It's like looking at someone pulling. You might be driving, not you, but just a person might be driving a bucket of a vehicle or something like that. And obviously that's subjective. It could, that's very subjective. But my point is that if you're looking at, if you're afraid to look out the window to the car to the left or to the right of you, see that it's a Mercedes or some kind of Bentley or something like that, and to admit to say, hey, you know what, that's nice. How'd you get that? And I think that is the very beginning of healing, and realize that, hey, you know what, we have the same thing that they have. And I think for me, again, going back to always being curious, is that I wasn't taught Black history in school, but I was able to. I remember my mom as a kid would say to me, I would say, "Mom, how do you spell such and such?" Get a dictionary. That's always she always did. a dictionary, get a dictionary, get a dictionary. Until this day, I travel with where I've been a flight attendant for many years. So till this day, I've always traveled with the dictionary. Always traveled with the dictionary. And from that, I write copy. I do, I write pretty well. But my point is that I think at some point we as Black people, due to the brokenness, and absolutely, because it was strategy, it was purposeful what they were doing. So I completely get that. But due to the brokenness, we stopped looking out the window. We stopped asking questions. And when we stopped asking questions, the very, even the Bible speaks of the very fear that the very thing that we fear had come upon us. And next thing you know, here we're falling asleep in the midst of the time when it's, when it was time for us to ask questions, be looking out the window, if you will. How did you get that? How did you do that? Rather than, I think, for a lot of us asking, how did you do that? I think we taken a lot of stuff that our brothers, that our counterparts have given us, that jealousy spirit, because I know a lot of us as a whole, as Black people, we're very accommodating to each other. Hey man, what's going on? How you doing? But the other part, that other nature, is not necessarily belongs to us. It's what we've been given. And I think with that, we kind of just are reluctant to look outside the window, if you will.
And also, if I may add as well, because Blackness has been evolving concept, and like I was mentioning earlier, with a conversation with my friend Candace, I like the use of the word evolving, because initially when the term Blackness was ascribed, it was used to put us down. But if you look at what Blackness is now in society, Blackness is cool. Like black is cool.
So much so that white people want to be Black.
Exactly. So much so that basically, like in 400 years, like white might be the new Black. like they might want to get back to Black, and that just speaks to us as a people, because when you look at the times and everything, you can basically see how whenever we are given the less of less, we take it and we make something beautiful out of it. So that even
absolutely
the way we cook, like our cuisines and from our features and everything. So like so Blackness started off as something that was meant to degrade and really like have us in a place where it's bad, and it still goes on in society today. And the thing about it, like a contrast going on, because like back in the days, you would see a thing such as you watch a show such as Roots, and the narrative was about slavery, and basically like it talked about the slavery narrative. And today we are at a place where we're basically talking about Wakanda and everything. So it seems like even in the media, like visually, like Blackness has had an evolution.
For sure.
But when you pay attention auditively, when it comes to our music, hip hop was basically like hip hop was like our savior. Like,
it's a mythology.
Exactly.
It was our mythology. To tap into, to help us transform our identity and help us see ourselves in a more positive as kings and queens.
Right.
That was the first time that you saw Wakanda happening live, like it was in the music.
Yes. And then, but funny enough, if you listen to music now, the narrative is like it's not basically it's not promoting the kings and queens aspect of things. So there seems to be also Blackness is a state of confusion. I would say it like that. So like the big elephant is like Blackness is a big state of confusion, because like once they give us something and we turn it good, then it's like, okay, like give it back to NASA now. Like NASA basically is going to take over now, because you guys can't handle this image that you have holding up. And then when it comes to the music side, so initially that means everything we do, like rock and roll, like every type of music, NASA comes, NASA takes it. And so when it comes to hip hop, now it's like I think we're at the state where NASA has come, and through capitalism and everything, just taking over hip hop. So there's a big confusion going on between the images that we're seeing and sounds that we're hearing. And because those things are going on, I think that it's causing a further it's causing further confusion, like amongst ourselves. So like who we are. So initially, because Blackness was not something good that you want to associate with, you look at behaviors nowadays, and it's something that human beings want to distance themselves away from the notion of being black. You have some black people that will still tell you, "I'm not black."
I just had one.
Exactly. So
I had the guy. This is not real. I'm like, really, my brother? Because you look like a black guy.
You look like what they what they would call a black guy.
Because the police think that you're somebody else when they tell you to put your hands up. So I'm saying, you can pretend like it doesn't exist if you want. Welcome Facts into the room.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, nice to hear you.
Finally, sorry.
No, it's all good. You don't
technological glitches on my side. Yeah.
I like that you joined us, and just so that people are aware, you can't see Facts because of his employment. So this is a real it's
a treat for us to have him.
It's a treat for him to speak into the mic. But I just want to use Dre, who was saying just prior. But when it comes to blackness, the mentality of leaving the hood is a poor mindset. Improving the black communities and still maintaining and redefining blackness should be our goal, not leaving. So getting the L card for wanting to leave his community, and Killer Mike is getting Killer Mike for president because he's trying to redefine. I think it was even KRS-One who was like, you can love your neighborhood without loving poverty.
Absolutely.
See, and a part of the difficulty there is you're talking about elevating not just yourself, but everybody else's perspective around you in a community. And it's very difficult, if not impossible, to do that. So we're dealing with a geography issue, right? And a proximity issue. So as an example, if you're, the affluent rappers, as an example, they're probably arguably in the best position to start having this dialogue right now, because they are so influential. And I've long said that the one currency that we have is the currency of cool, whether it be in the form of sports, entertainment, music, whatever the case may be. So when it's cool to reclaim the hood and gentrify the hood in the sense of, from the context of in a black empowerment context, they are the best voices for that. But now let's go back to what an earlier discussion. So let's imagine being Chris Gardner, who is a quantitative guy, essentially from the outside looking in, perhaps a bit of a nerd, right? He's into numbers. When he tries to make that push to, let's say, positively affect the neighborhood, how is he being received? How is he? And these are just questions. These are just rhetorical questions, right? How is he being received? How much influence does he have, right? It's just food for thought, because at the end of the day, we can want to reclaim, we've talked for years offline, that I'm very big on communities and proximity, that you can't build a community if everybody's living in different locations, right? It's a problem that is endemic in Toronto, specifically, and I don't know if we're talking very much about the Canadian experience specifically on this podcast, but you can't have a situation where you're building community. And you brought up Killer Mike a second ago, and the first episode where he was dealing with wanting to buy black, and he couldn't. Why? Well, here's the problem: is because not everybody lives. The people who are in a position to sort of prosper economically and support their community locally, and develop community, schools, businesses, and so on and so forth. Once they become affluent, what do? They leave, right? So you can't build momentum that way, right? And so that has been. So I'm just saying that all these factors are sort of contributing factors to keeping a people stuck. So how do you unstick it? So first thing, again, I support the business of reclaiming the hood, right? And doing business with each other and supporting each other economically as a primary function of how we sort of take care of ourselves as a community. Yeah?
Yeah. So, I think I want a Coca-Cola vending machine.
Yeah, right? Boom, all day.
I need one of those in Canada.
Real.
And the funny thing too that I kind of want to tag on is because the elephant in the room is that the reason why we want to leave is because, once again, blackness it seems like the narrative is making it be something that you don't want to be. You don't want to be black because that experience, the way that it's been told, is supposed to be that of just horrific experiences. So that's why.
That's fair. That's fair. I just want to challenge a thought, though, right? So, so let's look at the sort of trajectory of somebody's life and one of the gentlemen earlier on was talking, and I very much identified what he's talking about when he did bring up the business of Chris Gardner, and sort of we have to look outside of ourselves. Which one of you gentlemen was that? Because I couldn't see at the time.
I think it was Curtis. Yeah.
Curtis, yeah.
Right. So, the first thing that came to my mind as you were talking about that was about ego and selflessness. When you said that Chris had brought up the business of speaking to the stockbroker, hey man, what is that you have? I want, more importantly, how did you get that? Right. If you're in a state of ego and if you're in a state of envy, you're just like, yo, I want that.
Exactly.
Right? I'm not talking to you. I'm not going to converse with you to try and build something with you. Just mucky
and grimy.
Yes. So I'm going to come on a grimy thing now, and I just want to get that Chris card that you got. Yeah. Very different energy than so. Okay, so let's put that in a bucket for a second. So now let's talk about not wanting to live around other black people. So these are conversations I have with a lot of people, and this is some of the feedback I get. I don't want to live in a neighborhood where guys are driving down the street with their music blaring loud, I've been told. I don't want to live in a community where there's a certain, maybe the boys are hanging out on the street corner and, not conducting themselves properly, right? So these are some of the complaints from within the black community about being in the black community. So how do we deal with that now? Because we have a perception issue, not externally. That doesn't matter to me, but internally, how we perceive ourselves.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And so we can't even arrive at, let's think about what gentrification means and about reclaiming the hood and about, because if anything, I've spoken quite a bit about, we've talked offline a lot about, perception. So how does that factor in? So I'm going to throw that to you guys just as a question, as a listener and participant. We want to reclaim the hood and we want everybody to live close together, but how do we do that and make everybody comfortable? Because there has to be community standards, right?
I think as part of that perception that's been established in regards to how black folks see themselves, it's been established by the media. And I'm sorry, 1 second.
That's okay.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
All right. But yeah, I think that the what's been established for black people is essentially what the media has, what has been played out in the media. And I don't know if any of you follow Dr. Claude Anderson.
Big time.
Yeah, and he's written a book, The Power of Economics. Yeah, exactly. And he talked about the different pillars of economics, and one of the pillars, or a couple of them, is called political, and then also he talks about the media. And I think the media is huge, and I think we forget how back, a lot of us back in the 60s, where they had these horrific images where the dogs are being sicked on us, on the black folks, and they were being sprayed down with water hoses like we were just something so awful. And yet, these images, these things that we see, or the entire world has seen, they have played a huge part in how we see ourselves. Unfortunately, it's been the predominantly our counterparts that have been telling our history. Again, going back to what I was saying earlier, how the gentleman, as a flight attendant, I was working an aircraft, and the gentleman said that that the military would first take over the museum, and so for the fact that our museum historically, it has been essentially taken over, and we've had someone else telling our story for so long. And I think now, the gentleman, what's his name? Big Mike?
Yeah, Killer Mike.
Killer Mike, I'm sorry. But how he gets it, and so many other brothers and sisters, us, the four of us that are in the window, or the five of us that's in this window here, we're getting it. But like I think the gentleman said it was the elephant in the room. I don't know your real name, but
Boogie.
How
that's your real name.
Yeah, it is Boogie. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll stick with elephant in the room for now until I figure out how to pronounce that one. But any event, just how you were saying earlier, is that we are evolving. The blackness is evolving, and because it's evolving, we're finally coming into. I like to say the sleeping giant is awaking.
Yes.
And I think we've always been always been awesome, but that because someone has been pulling the strings, if you will, been telling our story, been giving us a little bit of our story, if you will, we would go on, we would accept it and run with it, and then say, wait a minute, I need the rest of the story. As my mom would say to me as a kid, Curtis, you have to remember, don't, stop breaking your plate after you eat. This is what mom would always say to me. And I take that this is as a kid, but I take that even now as an adult. I think we as Black people, we have to stop breaking our plate after we eat and know that there's more to the story. Mm-hmm. Know that we can truly get our full on. Truly, the sky is the limit, brothers and sisters, man. I'm just like getting excited, man. The sky is the limit, man. It's just like, there's nothing that we cannot do as a people, man, because my former job was a flight attendant. So I had to make a transition into a space where I was kind of touched here and there with it. And that is the digital space. But I've been in a digital space now for about 7 to 8 years. I've learned everything I need to learn online. Asking questions, looking at videos, and learn how to run a mixer. A mixer where at one time was as foreign as trying to split an atom. But now just through what other people are sharing, and a lot of the people happen to be white. They happen to be Black people, happen of all races, but nevertheless, the information people like to share, and so. You can come up on that alone. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know. That's just my my spin on it.
But see, they even
real quick. I just want to say facts. If you log off and then come back in, you'll be probably unmuted. Just leave and then come right back.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
And so like that's an interesting thing too, because like I guess the elephant in the room that I'm noticing.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So the elephant in the room that I'm noticing, because once again, like I'm sticking to the point of Blackness. The more and more we have this conversation, the more I'm actually seeing the point of it being a construct, because once again it seems like it's a capitalistic construct, because whenever Blackness makes money, then basically it's vacated. And I claim myself as to before, when our features used to be mocked and shamed, and basically nobody wanted that. But now they basically took it to a different place where it's a beautiful thing on us. Like people are making money from that. People that are not basically like melanated or whatnot, they're making money from features that were ascribed to Blackness only. So now, what now basically occurs is that it's something where if we're not careful, that within, I'd say the next 400 years, white probably will be the new Black, because like if you notice, prior to enslavement, prior to enslavement, basically there were no race divide like that, white and Black. So there was culture and religion, and amongst other things, the way of living. So when I say white is going to become the new Black, is by adopting the ways of living. So basically, whether it be the features, music that people listen to, by assimilating and like appropriating like those people's culture, then you assume the behaviors that makes a person quote unquote black. Because even when you look at language, like a person could be speaking black or a person could be speaking white. Like, hello there, how do you do? Everything is all dandy. Or basically, yo, my name is Jamal. I'm from, like, that is basically traits that are attributed to blackness and whiteness. So the more we exactly.
People, I mean, for me personally, I'm having an experience where I was talking to somebody on the, was it you? I think I was driving to work, and work is becoming increasingly more difficult for me these days. And being black seems to really hurt. And so when you talk about, not wanting to be black, I don't want that kind of black experience anymore. I'm really tired. I'm really tired. And I feel like I'm suffering the most at the hands of other people that look like me. When I think about that boxer, what's the boxer's name?
Deontay Wilder.
When he was yelling and screaming at that other black reporter about, what you mean? You're people too. What do you mean? You're people too. Like, I just felt like all of the rage that was inside of me was just right there on the screen, encapsulated in how this man was talking. Because who is this black man asking him what he's talking about? Does he really not know what he's talking about?
Right.
And so in an institution like the University of Toronto where I work, it's great that you might place a black supervisor above me. But when that person has bought in to what the institution represents and then starts to police me and discriminate me almost worse than my own colonizer.
Well said, sister, well said.
Yeah, I just feel like really frustrated, and it's already hard to wake up and just be all as it is. But they are putting another layer of complexity to my life that is not welcomed here.
Well, they have this old saying that every brother is not your brother, right? Absolutely. And so that's why we used to get real excited when somebody black would get a position that normally black people don't get and stuff. Yeah. But my thing is if they have the same mentality of people who oppressed you, and they're what they call them chocolate covered Europeans in mentality.
I've never heard that before.
Chocolate covered European.
So it doesn't even matter. Sometimes they're worse because they're hard, because then they get away with it because they have the same skin color as you. So it's all about the mentality. It was interesting. I was listening to you guys speak, and you were talking about this idea of moving out your neighborhood and all of that stuff. And my thing is we have to redefine in our community what is success. Yeah. Success isn't just that. If I have a child, I don't have no children, but if I had a son and my son becomes a doctor, but his mentality is of a coon, that's not success. You know what I mean? I'd rather him be a janitor, but his mind be right. You know what I'm saying? And I think in our mind is if we make a lot of money, if we do all these things that are great on paper, like he makes a lot of money, she makes a lot of money, but they have a mentality that is horrible, right? Then that's not a successful person. So we need to redefine in our community what is success, because a lot of times you'll be talking about somebody who is doing something that is deplorable, but then they'll say, but he make money though.
Exactly.
He making it bad.
As if.
Yeah, like it's like he could be a drug dealer, but he making that paper though, and we got to get rid of that mentality.
Baby moms, what's that?
I think I can absolutely agree with Kente, but I think I go back to what I was saying earlier, how important it is to know who we are as Black people prior to slavery.
Yes.
Because again, it's the history that's been locked up. It's a history that has been, that's been confiscated, if you will. And they're sharing with us a little bit at a time. And you know, in my personal time with God, I was just like, Lord God, what is it? How is it that how is it a group of people, you know, being Black people, could be hated so much?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, what is behind it? And this is my conversation with God. And so it led me to again looking outside the window. You
Yes.
know, it led me to looking around me, because you know, like Kente said, is that just because they're Black, or what's your name, sister? I'm sorry.
Oh, me, LA.
Oh, LA. Just like LA was saying a moment ago, is that it becomes increasingly hard. You know, especially you got somebody above you who's Black, and they're kind of essentially been sent in to kind of make sure the herd don't get away, if you will. They just kind of corral us in. But my point is that history is always a factor. It's what you learn, and it's what we don't know. And if we could go back to prehistory and look, not prehistory, but pre-slavery. I'm sorry. And we can go back to pre-slavery, where the Blacks were the kings and queens, and we still are. Ooh, praise the Lord, thank you, Jesus. We still are. I'm trying. I'm sorry. I had to come out. But,
it's okay. The Holy Ghost doesn't discriminate. He's no respecter of persons.
We still are kings and queens. But I think that, again, history and educating ourselves, we have to come to a place that we don't want to hear. Yes, I know slavery is an important issue. That's important. But I need to know, why is it that you hate me so much? You hate me so much.
Can I throw something out there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
What's up, Fred? I just want to say something.
Go ahead.
Yeah? All right. Maybe I'm a little bit too militant, right? But I'm just going to call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I just care about me and my people, and if we're all right. Mm-hmm. And this is just me, okay?
I'm with you.
The hate, I will express this.
Mm-hmm.
Slavery was an economic construct.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right? Mm-hmm. Racism is a social construct designed to mask the true intention, which is economics. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because it is cheaper to pay you nothing than to pay a white guy, right? Quite frankly, slavery hurt everybody, right? Not equally, but certainly if I was a white laborer who's just trying to get on, I can't get that job, right? Why? Because a Black person can do it for free. Okay, so there was an economic benefit to slavery. And again, we have to contextualize it. We're going to have to look at South America as a very different animal and more similar to the Caribbean, and a very different animal than what it was in America. And let's be honest, until 1834 in Canada, we had slavery here too, generally amongst Aboriginal people, but certainly Blacks as well. So you have to look at things in the proper context, but ultimately, regardless of it, at the end of the day, it was always an economic construct. So that we're hated is a side issue. I don't care if you hate me, right? I just care if you're an impediment to me getting the life I want. Okay. And I'm also concerned about, so as you know, so if the label of this conversation is about defining Blackness and speaking about Blackness, we have, I was the, Mike had brought up earlier on, I'm throwing out names and I don't even know what I'm supposed to be throwing out. But M Boogie, let's call you that. How about that? if you brought up the whole business about Blackness and whiteness in the context of language and sort of how one speaks, So yeah. I used to always get that one. Yeah. Oh, you're acting white. You're talking white. This is no. It's like no. I just like English, since that's the language that I'm kind of learning right now. Right. So I speak it. Right. And if you have a problem with that, or if you define that as being racialized, it's as silly as saying that if somebody were, a Caucasian or European individual were to speak an African dialect, which does happen wherever they are on the continent, that suddenly that now makes them Black. No, my racial or phenotypical definition is completely different than the language that I speak. Right now, where am I going with this?
Yes, where are you going with it?
Watch this. Right. Watch this. I'm going to summarize this real quick.
Yes.
So if we're looking at things from, so first thing is that you were at something that was economically convenient. right? It was economically convenient to keep us in a certain place. Okay, fine. Our battle, therefore, has to be what? On many levels, economic.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, like, so we are looking for respect when in fact respect comes with money. And how do I know this? And when I say money, I mean communal money. So communal economics. That's why I do love the Killer Mike show, because he gets to the heart of the issue, which is I've never seen to this day, and I don't want to, belabor the point about celebrating other communities, but I have to this day not seen a Asian or Jewish march on anything. Yet I see 1% of the global population, which is the Jewish people, who control a vast amount of the world's wealth. They may not like that. People were talking about conspiracy theories and, elders of Zion. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just looking at the facts. All right.
Elders of Zion.
No, I'm just keeping it real, because some people may like, oh my God. People may hear the show and be like, oh, it's anti-Semitic because he just stated a simple fact and in fact, it should be taken as a compliment. Look at Jay-Z. He just got heat because, or no, it wasn't Jay-Z. Who was it that quoted?
Jay-Z.
Was it Jay-Z?
And LeBron James. Yeah.
And LeBron James, yeah. He's getting heat for stating a fact. Like, what are we talking about here? We're being silly. I'm not saying that all people that are of Jewish descent control all the money or there's a worldwide plot, but I'm stating a fact. You have 1% of the world's population that, if I were to look at from academia, business, entertainment, and so on and so forth, they have high ranks in those industries. That's something to be ashamed of, and I don't want it to be labeled as such.
And they've done this was so brilliant too. And then when you point out something that's totally visually obvious, they do this Jedi mind trick. They say, no, it's not true.
It's not true, and it's like, but it is true. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it, and you should be comfortable with that, right? And I'm not ascribing to them a plot to take over the world, but let's keep it real. Like, it is what it is, right? Now, and this is it. But again, same thing with the Chinese community, right? I'm not seeing them out here marching. I just see them out here buying up Markham. So I don't know. Let's keep it focused for a minute, right? So now so that's my first thing is the the importance of viewing things from a communal economic standpoint. The second thing, to what you're saying, you were talking about history, I think, a second ago, Curtis.
Yes, I did.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, here's the thing, though. Right, and I've often heard these terms like our history has been hidden from us and so on and so forth, and I hear that, and that is very true. However, whose job is it to fix that?
Us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm not saying that you said otherwise, but I just want to state that for the record, because I think sometimes a lot of, like, I was somebody who, they were setting up a school here in Toronto, and I wasn't here at the time. They were setting up a school here for that was going to be under the sort of the guise, or the control rather, of the TDSB in Toronto, and it was a black school, and I'm like, wait a second, at what point does your adversary / oppressor create something for you? What are we doing here? Create your own. Fund it yourself. And I had, I was like, here, I got 10 G's. Who's with me? I was on all over social media. No one. I think I got one person who responded who said that they had 5 G's to help. I can't create a school on 15 G's. But the biggest thing is family, is the mindset that you would think that's okay. Because today it may be okay and the curriculum's okay, but let's fast forward 15 years. What are they teaching them?
Exactly, and that's the main thing that I got from the Mike documentary. So, like, when he basically was trying to buy black, the thing that was very flagrant about that is the fact that we don't own nothing.
Yes.
So basically, exactly. So what that means is that, like, as in past conversations, we have to then now empower our children with basically the knowledge to want to own things, and not be owned. So that was the main thing that was sticking out. And the thing that I kind of want to really touch on again is there seems to be basically a description that's fitting for black, because when you sit back and you just look at the word black, it's like, see, language is very important, and it's very there's a lot of things. So white and black. So black is be lack. So basically, that means that you are being ascribed to lack.
Everyone, Canada has free weed. You can smoke weed here freely. Clearly, Michael is on the deepest level here.
I'm breaking this shit down for y'all. Letters. But honestly,
but true.
Like, truthfully speaking, so be lack, because like see that is a construct that was given to this, like a group of people that were kings and prior to coming here. So the thing is that when you look at Roots, that show, the part that I used to kind of basically bring my point is when he had to break him from Toby, from Kunta Kinte to becoming Toby.
Yeah.
So he's basically telling he lacked to basically lack his identity. And right. Right. And I mean, so it's like language is very important. Like, and we're speaking the English language. So we were basically enslaved and brought here and given a different language, but you don't understand what you're speaking properly, like the actual root of words. So like when like the reason why people like everything that's associated with blackness is basically like bad is because they're telling you that you're going to be lacking. So it's like we're fighting so hard to make it work, and it shows to basically it shows us our behaviors and like our resilience and strength as people. Now, when it comes to basically when it comes to basically like us as humans, like the reason why you see some black people like having European tendencies is because you got to find your tribe. It's a mindset rather. It goes beyond the skin at times. Even though they've grouped us as basically as skin colors, this is where like I'm coming to understand. Some people have your skin color, but like what's the saying in LA? Skin.
My skin folk ain't my kin folk.
And see, like that, it plays way back into the days when like our ancestors were back in Africa, because back then it used to be tribalism that was like the deciding factor between like to divide us. So they understand that, and coming here and like basically stripping that away from those folks and be giving them like a new identity as you will be like all you guys are gonna lack. Like they're going to know how to work certain groups of people, certain mindsets, certain tribes as to what they want. And over here is like money, capitalism has been the main driving factor. Like it's very deeply rooted. Back in Africa, like we have a lot of resources and stuff. We have gold, diamonds, and whatnot. And these are things that as a man or as a human being, we are attracted to these things. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
So basically, we're attracted to these things. And so nowadays, like we're so focused nowadays that we've been introduced like a new type of goal, and it's capitalism, money. Go grind for that money, get that paper. But along the way, a lot of people kind of lose themselves as to who they are as people, because they're trying to get that money to survive. They're trying to get a lot of it. It's like along with stripping that of the identity, they gave us basically like something to strive for as well. And we didn't start off at the same leg as them.
And so let me ask you, so Mike, can I throw a question out at you or just a thought? So yes, certainly, you know, I was actually just listening to I think it was the Martin Luther King ceremony in Washington. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was talking. Anyways, so she was making some comments about capitalism and socialism and so on and so forth, and economic fairness and whatnot. My question is fairness. Like, so we have so capitalism is inherently unfair. It's born from mercantilism, which is definitely about going and robbing and taking resources from other nations to benefit the mother country, right? Which was always invariably European. My question for you is, given that we're in this system now, and I always like to look at things from the viewpoint of other groups. It's not just about us. We're all in this system together, right?
Yeah.
And so then I can't change what I'm in. I can only change my perceptions of it, right? Until I can get to the point where I can change it, right? So it's sort of like a two-step process. You can't change it until you're in it, kind of like Neo in the Matrix, right? So my question for you is, okay, so we've inherited this system that we're in. Yes. We were in fact, when you talk about capitalism, we're more intimately connected to it, arguably, than any other group, in the sense that we have literally been physical capital as a group of people, our ancestors. And the system was designed to create asymmetric profit based on our labor, right? So then how do we reject that system? Because I find a lot of I sort of see two camps. Like I see there's a camp of Black people who have sort of a socialist bent, where they're like, they want equality and justice and so on and so forth. And that's more like, okay, we're going to demand that the system sort of respond to us. And then there's another school of thought that are definitely capitalists. And I'm thinking again a lot about celebrities and so on and so forth, who have done economically. They said, okay, if this is the board game you're giving me, I'll play it and I'll master it. Right. But what I do with it now is going to be totally different than what you think. Right. So is there I guess where do you view us in this discussion of Blackness? How do you sort of see that manifesting with these two different ideas, and where's the conflict there? How do you bring them together? Is there a way to bring them together?
So it's like, for me, I actually go to the Killer Mike interview, the part where he was talking with DJ Envy. And there's a part where he was going at it with DJ Envy. And Killer Mike's point, if I remember correctly, he was talking about a communal living, like a way of basically like us living together. And for me, how I see it, honestly, and being African as well, like what I've witnessed, like being African, and also from stories that I hear about Caribbeans, is there's a sense of community. Whereas to let's say if a person who's not capitally like doesn't have a lot of capital, they might not like go hungry or not have a place to stay. They can have a place to stay, get food and whatnot. So that type of system, it does exist. So now, so that means like, what can you do? Like, what can I do? Like this kind of makes you going back to the old financial system that used to exist before, like the current one is like, what can you do that you could bring to the table? Now, us as basically like as Black people now, like I'll be saying it like that whole time, Black. But
and nobody's gonna want to say they're Black after
exactly
that.
Right? Because you don't want to laugh.
I'm not laughing.
But the thing is, us as people, like in being here, we have acquired knowledge on how they build this system as well. And I believe that, like, so what Black is going to look like in the future, or what us as people are going to look like, what Africans are going to look like in the future, that with this knowledge that we're able to see from them, we have different professionals, we have people that are professors, we have administrators, we have athletes, we have people that can do all sorts of professions. So if we come together, like I think you talked about it, proximity. If we basically like find people that look like us, and we see what we each bring to the table, I think by focusing on basically like what we could give each other, right away, it cuts a lot of what we need from them out of the picture. So basically like right there and there.
No, I was just
provide for self.
What you're talking about makes me think, are we all going towards the same goal?
Nah, sir.
Right? And clearly we're not all going towards the same goal.
Right.
Socioeconomic status has a lot to do with that, but at the same time, the educational part of that socioeconomic status is to teach you how to be like our oppressor.
Yes.
So if we are trying to decolonize our minds, then what does that look like once it's done? What are we decolonizing to?
Drum roll, please. Gotta throw something at you. All right. So first of all, you come now to the whole thing. So let's go back again to Curtis, what he's talking about with history. And we're talking about schools, and we're talking about economics. And Mike said it, and Boogie said it quite right. Right? Which is this business of what are we teaching our children? I want to say something. There has never been a revolution that never concerned itself with children. Hitler had Hitler Youth for a reason. When you look at the Communist Manifesto and sort of the way that was developed and marketed, everything is a marketing scheme, right? At the end of the day, we have a narrative. Whatever your narrative is, you're going to popularize it, especially among the young people. Why? Because that has to have life for the next 20 years in order to really hold weight. The adults, they may or may not want to participate. Right? So when you have revolution, what has happened? Let's look at history. In the communist revolution, the Bolshevik revolution, you kill the adults, you keep the young people, you educate the young and indoctrinate them. And then what ends up happening? It manifests for the next 20 to 40 years. And so that gives us some life. We're trying to, in some way, create a revolution, but it's more of an evolution of a people that's peaceful and global disparate groups, disparate languages, disparate cultures under the one thing, which is that we all have this same melanin, right? And we all have this shared history. So my question is, okay, so then how do we, to what you said, so we're not all singing from the same hymn book. I didn't even bring up the whole business of religion. All right. So how do you do this? How does that manifest? Well, whatever you're teaching your children is going to manifest in the next 20 years. Are your children doing business with each other, meaning that they are regularly meeting other children that look like them in a supportive environment? I'm not talking about Sunday school or in a religious context, but because that does happen every Sunday, and not just at school, but in another context that says, you are greatness. This is your history. This is what you're here to celebrate. And this is the mission. Where are we giving them the mission? And I'm going to throw something at you. There's a quote from John Henrik Clarke, who's, my father, right? Not literal, but spiritual father. Like I grew up listening to this man. And he said here, to what you're talking about with socialism, in these African communal societies, and he's just talking about, he was sort of, as he began studying African history and different cultures, and he realized that there was a commonality to what you were saying, Mboogie, about the business of supporting each other. He started to see that was a thing everywhere on the continent. He said, in these African communal societies where each got according to his needs, we're not copied from Europe because they existed before there was a Europe. In these societies, based on the concept of the family and the community, everyone in the society had a responsibility. Big word for me. In these societies, there was no word for jail because no one had ever gone to one. No word for orphanage because no one had ever thrown out any children. No word for old folks home because no one would ever have thrown away grandma and grandpa. So we already have our answer. It's who we are the answer we're looking for, as they say, yeah? And my thing is, our deeper values, our deeper respect for ancestors, regardless of whether you're coming from Christian or Santeria Obia. I don't care where you are in the religious spectrum. Or atheist. No, but I'm saying that is something that is...
That's facts.
Yeah, that's deeply in us, that we have a deep respect for our ancestors, right? That's cultural, right? That's in the DNA of an African person. So I don't, again, you can take it to either extreme, but we have to give that life. We can't keep walking away from who we are. And we certainly can't wear this other guy's clothes. So to me, I say to the European, thank you very much for the lesson learned. This past 400 years has been very interesting. Okay. However, I think I want to tell a slightly different tale for the next 400. I'll start with my kids. And what I'm going to tell them is my own narrative about their ancestors and how they have to make them proud and how you must support your community economically, what that looks like, and so on and so forth. If we don't do that, because right now we have other options. We got, you can let the rap industry teach your kids what to do, and they will be doing that anyways. Okay. And it's not all going to be Jay-Z with 444. It's not going to be that, right? It's going to be, and I had this conversation earlier on today, which was the conflict in the rap community is, on one side, it's, I want to babe up with my homie. And on the next side, I want to kill everybody in the neighborhood. That's a recipe for genocide. So, and I don't care. I'm not trying to, people say, oh, are you being homophobic? No. I'm just being honest here. Let's look at it for what it is. It's either I want to babe up with all my homies or I want to kill everybody that looks like me. Please show me how that's supposed to be supportive of Black families and Black economic upliftment, please.
And then you're right. You have to look at like the powers that be that's pushing that. So there's a lot at play here. That's why I also like the question that I ask as well. How will Blackness look like in 400 years? Will there be a Blackness in 400 years? And I mean, like for me, I say that when I say the white is a new Black, that is basically like, just look at society, what is going on, just the roles and the roles that basically like were generally attributed to one group it seems to be kind of shifting. And along with that, to our conversation from last week, there seems to be this great gender divide that's going on. So if there is a gender divide that has been implemented within our mindsets, then like if we're not together, there most likely will not be black people in 400 years from now, and basically that's when white is the new black, that's when reparations will occur. Then hey, let's pay those poor black people for like what they've suffered. Let's pay ourselves.
That's already happened. There was.
Oh yeah.
Yo, you hear about the guy, this white man, who said he is born again African. And he applied for money that was $500,000 that's designated to a black man, and he got it.
So and you're going to hear more of these stupid stories.
I don't know. Because there's trans everything. Like you can be whatever. I saw a white man saying that he was a Filipino woman. So it's almost like it's
a mockery.
It's mockery.
Because that's when you have to look at the word. Like Curtis, we'll get you the best. You have to look at the word black, white, and everything. Those labels that they slap. They're just showing you how that could be just wiped off and changed like that. You know what? I'm trans. Because I'm feeling this way. I am beyond this now. So
can I say something? That's been the whole agenda of this intersectionality, a word I strongly resist. I don't care who's offended or pissed off. I'm going to say my mind.
Wait. Why is that offensive? Why is intersectionality?
Let me explain something to you. In my opinion, and again, this is only my opinion. All right? Intersectionality essentially has become a ghettoization of oppressed groups against a singular oppressor, which is the heterosexual white male. Yeah. Everybody has beef with him. Okay. Now, okay, fine. I'll let you have that one. But here's the problem. My issues are very different than that guy's issues or her issues or whatever. And there may be some commonality there, but I have a specific economic issue that needs redress. Okay. So the problem is that it ends up diluting my issue.
Absolutely.
Amongst other issues, because it now is become part of a collective moaning and groaning against heterosexual white males, which does what? It creates now an environment where you do get the Trumps and the Fords and the rest of it, because there's a backlash, rightfully so. Because if I was a heterosexual white male who was ignorant in my ways, I didn't know. And all of a sudden I'm just being attacked by all these groups. It's just like, I was like, whoa. I was just born with a penis and a little less melanin. What's going on out here? Right? So I'd be kind of pissed off myself, right? Straight up. You know, there's no white child that was born today that's I can't wait to be an oppressor. It doesn't work.
That's the same thing that Dr. Claude Anderson was saying is what you just said, facts.
Yeah.
He said the same thing you said, that these different groups, you know, even for the women who are considered minorities, white women, I should say, who are considered minorities, all of these different groups that are broken up, the transsexual, the trans, whoever they are, they will eventually, as Fax had mentioned, break away or at least dilute the whole, you know, this, let's just say this pie or this whatever the funding that was supposed to go to certain groups or oppressed groups and things of that nature. So he mentioned the same thing. But I want to go back to kind of my comment, and I've been saying kind of the whole time I've been here is that history. I think that whether we're going to buy up our community, whether we're going to know what direction we need to go when we do get the money or take hold of the capital, I'm going to always, for me personally, just my view, always going to go back to history, because again, for me, looking at my situation right now in this space of working online, being in a digital space, I don't know anybody in this space. And so my point is to bring that up is that I've had to learn from other people in this space, and how much more if we understood, again, pre-slavery, going back to where blacks had universities, had countries, owned entire countries.
Yeah.
If we can study them much in the same, because up to this point we don't have it. We don't. I mean, we've had what? I mean, I guess depends on who you idolize, but Jesse Jackson, a few other people, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Louis Farrakhan. We've had icons like that. I have nothing against them, but even on a greater level, and I said earlier, my conversation with God was, well, God, why is it that they hate us? Not that I care.
Fair.
Oh, let me. I just want to clarify that. Not that I care whether they hate me. That's not my business. Okay, but I needed to know I needed to know why they hated me, so that why was the empowerment that I needed. That why is the thing that empowers me, and without the power, you can't do anything. You can't. You when you get the money. Or not just speaking in general, when we get the money, we'll buy tennis shoes. We'll buy try to buy lunch for everybody, and all this ridiculous stuff. We're not buying up the cities, but the only way I can know what personally, I didn't grow up with my biological father. Okay, but even though I didn't grow up with my biological father, I know that there are brothers out there, brothers and sisters out there, that I can learn from by studying them, reading history, learning from them. Now that I've been, I think, or as Black people, we have been, I think for a reason, God has allowed this, that we may learn from the oppressor. But that we also need history, that we may learn that we were kings and queens, and then take that information, couple together, and we can get out of it. We can change it.
And you know what? To actually like tag along with what you're saying, I guess when you bring the God aspect into it too, like I could see what you're saying in a sense where learn from your oppressors. And I think African like Americans that are here and African Caribbeans, I find that by us being here together now, it gives us a place of commonality where we can basically come together and create a new narrative. Because if you basically if we're being real, let's say we come together and we basically overcome, then basically like, what happens next? Because like there becomes an issue of like finding the tribe, because you mentioned you like basically things in the IT field and whatnot, and some people will have divergent views. So with that mindset, we have to also foreplan as to what is going to happen after like the Great Black Revolution. We basically come back. What is the aftermath? What is going to occur? And I think for me personally, I believe that the people in North America and Caribbean Blacks should basically be able to still be over here in North America, and not everybody move back to Africa. I mean, we can visit Africa, but it gives us much more of an economic advantage and strength if we have access to Jamaica, like the Caribbeans, and basically we stay where we are, but just basically like to Fact's point, work our proximity to our advantage. Basically work amongst ourselves and build ourselves up, and then basically create like an economic strong house like that. Because right now, like blackness is losing, and I don't want to say that we are not Black, because that's a label that they've attached to us. We are kings and queens. I'm B4. There you go. I'm beautiful. I'm and so like I think that what you call is like getting back to that narrative of kings and queens. What that basically does for us is that it allows us to see where we want to be at, and along with that too, like to Fact's points, teaching our children how we would like for them to live. So what is it that your child, like, what tools are you giving your child to basically be an owner, or be, to hold something of substance in like the years to come? That is what we focus on.
But to your point further, is that if we recognize that we were kings and queens, again, this is what the schools have been teaching us: slavery. That's all we hear. Excuse me. And unless you've enrolled in secondary education or a college level, you may hear obviously something different. I would hope so. But my point of it is that up to a point, most Black people, at least in the States, I would suspect, is that they've heard slavery. But just think, if we knew who we were post-slavery, we would talk to I'm trying to tell you, man, we would talk to our children differently.
But and I agree with you. Can I throw something at y'all? Because I just want to say something. I read a book many years ago called The Rescue of Jerusalem. Highly recommended. I tell everybody. I cried after I read this.
What's the name of it?
The book is called The Rescue of Jerusalem. And I'll tell you a sad story. It's written by a guy who, a white gentleman. He was a journalist at the Montreal Gazette, had adopted a black child, and he did what he wanted to do for all of his kids, because he had kids previously. And he wanted to find heroes that looked like his child, and he couldn't. So he goes on this journey to sort of untangle, well, where are the black people in history? And he runs into the same thing you're talking about there right now, Curtis, which is the slavery. And he's like, well, there's a little bit of history here. So who are these people? He begins to research and finds out that, I'll summarize and say, King Taharka, which is a pharaoh in Egypt, in, I believe, the 500s or so BC, was instrumental in rescuing Israel from certain destruction by the Assyrians. Now, why is this important? First of all, I read this book and I cried. It's the only book I ever closed the cover and I just started to weep. Wow. Because it was the first time I saw people that look like me, indisputable, black African people who were, and the joke is, Taharka is the only pharaoh that's actually named in the Bible. So I was raised in a Christian home, and I'm like, how did I miss that? How come no minister ever mentioned that one? And here I am flipping until I see it, and it was shocking. So my point being is here's another little quick thing that I just found out the other day, that in I think it was the 1830s, somewhere abouts there, European surgeons saw Africans in South Africa, from everywhere from South Africa to Uganda, performing C-sections. Now, this is an advanced medical procedure, right? If you study the history of C-sections, it's literally right there in front of you. So again, it's the evidence is there, the stuff is there. But the question is, if we want to keep regurgitating the same story, that's why I reject all this slave talk, because it's like, okay, yeah, interesting chapter. However, I've got a very long history that I got to talk about, right? I've got warrior queens like a Manatari that I've got to talk about. I've got the richest man in the world, a Mansa Musa, worth the equivalent of $400 billion today, to talk about. I've got a lot to talk about. So I don't need to talk about that stuff. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So again, we got to go back to this business of to what you said, and I think you were so spot on when you said that, which is, how differently would we speak to our children?
Absolutely.
And I see how different I am with my own sons, the things that I bring to them. That, I don't celebrate what I'll call Western or colonial holidays. So I don't do Thanksgiving and Christmas and not yada yada. Like, I celebrate my own heroes, right? Because the very meaning of a holiday is to reinforce a cultural norm. So why would I reinforce Thanksgiving where my Aboriginal brothers and sisters were slaughtered? I don't participate in that, right? Your choice. I ain't judging nobody for it, but that's just not my thing. You know what I'm saying? So my whole thing is okay, so how do we change the conversation? What are we going to teach our kids? Teach the kids the truth. Try that. We'll start with that.
Teach the kids the truth. And you also mentioned about, and we're going to wrap up soon, just to put that out there, and continue on to other Blackness-like conversations in the next episode. But I think it was you who said, what are we going to do after we get there? And it's this whole idea of getting there that is actually quite elusive. We will never get there because there's no there to get. We only have this present moment. And so what do we want to do presently, right now, that is going to get us somewhere different than we are right now? And as we know, it's not going to be a homogenous approach. So we have to start thinking about, yes, we need to teach our children, and not necessarily, yes, we came from kings and queens, and we may never understand fully where we came from. And we have to accept this. Just define what it is that we want now. What are we taking from what we understand and building as a foundation for us to move forward? And that's what I take from my children. I try every day to decolonize their minds, to decolonize my mind. But like you said about our language, all of these things are a part of what we're living in. So I'm trying to create a different environment for how I'm living, but I'm also acutely aware of the society by which I have to operate in. When my son wants to see Santa Claus, or he wants the whole family to come over for Thanksgiving, it's kind of like, how do I then appropriate that to reflect something that I want to celebrate within my home?
Right.
That creates things that are important to me and how I see the future. But we don't all think that way. And so we also have to stop. I know we have to accept people for where they are. There's a lot of talk about, don't bring that negativity around me, or I don't want to be around that person because they're this or they're that. Mental illness is a real problem in the Black community, and it manifests itself in different ways. And we have to start to learn how to define from somebody who's bad-minded from somebody who's struggling. And not alienate the person who is struggling because it comes up like they have a negative thing around them, when really they don't know how to articulate what's happening to them. And the further we place that person alone, the more pain they're going to be in, and the more pain our community will stay in. So there are bad-minded people, and yes, you need to stay away from them. But if you know someone's not in their, even if their behavior is seemingly bad, you have to know the heart of that person, and to know that that person is not really coming for you in a way that is to make you fall. So yes, define the boundaries, live within those boundaries, but just love on one another. Be empathetic.
Also, I wanted to say too about those. There's some people we just got to write off too.
That's the bad-minded ones. Those are the bad-minded.
Have you ever seen this movie called They Live? Right, where you got to put on the sunglasses to see the aliens, right?
Yeah.
There's some Black people that you can put them glasses on them, they'll see it and they just won't see it. So you just gotta toss them to the side of the road. So.
But as I see, this is like a cool thing. So I want to add to this.
That's just an elephant, by the way.
Yeah.
That is you get the elephant right there.
But one thing I want to add too is it just really hit me too. When we talk about languages, and even in regards of the aspect of mental health, and this is going to be for a future conversation as well, but in regards to mental health, one thing that I'm realizing, and see, when we trace our lineage back to the tribalism and everything is a different language, different frequency that we're on. So now my lenses have been opened to the fact that, it's not necessarily somebody's sick, because see, there's one perspective that the world views things by, and they may be experiencing something completely different, and we may not be speaking the same language. And so in that sense, it is okay to basically try as best as you can to understand, but if you can't, do not kill yourself, and basically do not kill yourself to trying to, and them as well. So I think it's with further understanding and empathy, we could basically overcome. And we are suffering, especially Black people. I think a lot of people who are labeled Black, I'm gonna really work my language to get that correct. But
be fullness.
A lot of basically our people, because of the experience that our ancestors went through, we have been traumatized, whether you know it or not. Trauma has been passed on down to you because either an absent father or just different scenarios that basically cause you to behave in certain ways. So that, that being said, there's so much mental
intergenerational trauma.
Exactly, intergenerational trauma that's occurring. So yes, empathy has to be there, and you may be here with somebody from a different tribe, that you guys don't even know, back in your ancestral days. So just empathy, and
I think also, in addition to what you just said there, that's just you mentioned it earlier a few times in regards to just the power of words and how important language is, and that. In fact, that when we speak words, I've been, my time with God, I've been working on something and just reading the scripture that says that God is a spirit, and they that worship must worship him in spirit and truth. And I think when we truly understand that, I'm not talking about religion, I'm not talking about wearing white, I'm not talking about, crossing your heart and all that stuff, or, none of that nonsense. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just talking about having a relationship. And then that's the power of me, like you said earlier, about the importance of words and understanding how words are important and how that they are either effective or effective on the outside or affecting us on the inside. Either way, there's a burden, there's a weight that everything that we speak or don't speak, or something that we don't do, there's a burden that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
And because it carries a burden, we find ourselves speaking things, saying things that we think are just, oh, that's nothing. But in fact, it is something. There's a weight, there's a burden that comes with it. And you mentioned earlier about the mental disorder, mental disease, and things of that nature that comes with it. Because words are weight. Words are actually, the Bible says that the word is alive. Because it is alive, it carries something with it, and that something is a spirit.
Yes, exactly.
And because it carries that spirit, it will have a person from, as a gentleman just said earlier, from generation to from one generation to the next generation. And here we are acting out something that had nothing to do with us, but nevertheless, it's been placed in our lap. And so we have to figure out how to, or we have to take a responsibility for it. And if need be, go back in history, check out where it came from.
Yes, exactly. Retrace it.
And then we can heal. But until then, this is what we're dealing with.
Big time. And I think so. Like now, we're just gonna wrap it up. So, but before we do that, I just want to give each individual, like, if you have any way of people contacting you or any last words, just if you want to plug it in. Curtis, do you have any social media or any anything you want to add?
Mostly just for me, again, Curtis Brooks is my name. Mostly for me, it's digital marketing. I don't normally chime in conversations like this, but it's been actually definitely enjoyable. But you can reach me on Facebook, mostly Curtis Brooks Media Productions on Facebook.
Curtis Brooks
Media Productions.
Yeah.
Okay, and also like I actually want to encourage like all you guys that are in this room, if you could also add your social media information, because I believe that in order for us to heal, to kind of add to Fact's point, proximity is very, very important. So like whenever I go into spaces now, I try to basically leave all my contacts, and so we can connect that. I don't know who you know, and you don't know who I know. But if we come together, we can always network and build from there. So like
just add it.
Exactly.
What's up next week?
So next week, so like going along with the series that we're doing this month about identity. So today was the self eyewear, as I mentioned earlier. So like and then location eyewear. So next week is going to be the self eyewear, as in respectability politics. The mask, the different masks that we put on to belong in this world and to survive. So like next week, the same time from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. or more
to 4:42 p.m.
Right.
I want to say this has been an honor to be a part of this show. You guys always do great content, even though this is your second show. So you're two for two. Great show, and thank you so much, Curtis, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And stuff. You can follow me at Kente F, and tomorrow we'll be doing Men and Women Talk to Mars Venus show. We'll be doing it through YouTube live. So if you're following us on Facebook, we'll hit you guys up. We'll be talking about cannabis.
Ooh.
So
you have Canadians in the room?
You know what? Maybe we need a couple of Canadians. You guys,
especially because I know in the comments you were talking about it as a business and as the health. Facts has so many things to add about the business of cannabis.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Come on through then. Shoot.
Yeah, he knows a lot about the business of cannabis.
But Facts,
yeah.
Facts about the business?
Is he still there?
No, I think.
Oh no,
So I'll connect you guys because he has a wealth of information about almost everything. That's why we call him Facts.
Nothing but facts.
That's why we call him Facts. But in terms of the health benefits of cannabis, really follow the strain of CBD and the lower THC, and you will get to why they would legalize weed in Canada, and the real health benefits of that particular kind. And they must have something in mind, because they wouldn't have legalized it if it wasn't about to make them a shitload of money. So they're just looking for a way to control it in the U.S. on that national level.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys already in California, you already know what it is out there anyway. But Kinte, the IG, what IG stuff?
Like verbally saying, because they go. I think we also have to say verbally because we might not. If you are basically watching the repost, then you might not see the comments. But follow us on Instagram at The Elephant Room TV. And from Miss Wade, yours is?
Mine is This Is LA Wade on IG. If you want to catch me on Twitter, it's at LA Wade 6. The 6 is for the 6, Toronto. And Mike?
So I am Mike _Truth. So MIC as in Charles _Truth, TRUTH. That's on Instagram. And also, I think tonight you usually do a show on Sundays as well. Right?
I do, but today it's not going on. But I am a part because I'm an older woman that just happens to look good. But it's called All Our Own, and it's for Generation X women. I'm here with my millennial brother right here,
Squad,
keeping me relevant, keeping me in the know. Like, I don't remember, what was the name of that dude, Kinte, that was telling me, you got to just put yourself in there and try something new every day. So my millennial friends keep me relevant. Your Generation X. Anyway, I just personally, and I'm sure Mike feels the same way, we want to give a big shout out to our producer, Kinte.
Yes.
This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm just really grateful that we've connected on this platform. Mm-hmm. And now look at all the great things that are coming about from it. Mm-hmm. Look out for town halls in your neighborhood. If you're in a city where you think that you would like the Elephant Room to come and facilitate a conversation live, we are more than willing to come across the country and do that, cross the border, anything we need to do to reach you and have these important conversations, and to also galvanize the supports that are in your community, because maybe people are not aware of what is there for support.
Yes.
What is it? Canadian Fest in here?
Yo, Luke is funny. Yo, Luke. I like
Luke. He's an ally, as Trigger Mike would say.
Wait a minute, but Boogie is not really Canadian, though.
That's true.
Yeah, it's like, I'm
so he's one of us. He's one of us.
Yes.
He's actually from Ghana.
What? I'm from Ghana. Like, I just claim Ghana. It's like, honestly, North
he was
America.
born in Ghana.
I'm from Ghana.
Not born in the United States.
Okay, so he's not one of us. He's not one.
But
he's not part
of Boogie is the nomad, so he's from everywhere.
Yes, I've traveled a lot.
Yeah,
honestly,
Shannon,
guys,
all the people that came in the room.
Yes, exactly.
Dre, it was great to see you, Tony, Melvin. We hope you will join us next week for some more enriching conversation. And hit us up. Can they email us?
Yes,
Where
they can.
They email us?
So our email address is the Elephant Room TV at
Elephant Room TV
at gmail.com.
Oh, that's easy.
Exactly. And yes, actually, yes, Luke, you're right. Actually, like, I think I swam. I didn't drive.
That's a long drive. Okay.
But you guys were awesome. Thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
And honestly, we hope to reconnect next week.
But not at peak time. What does that mean, Luke?
Yes, I mean
Uber.
I got my
It's okay.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much.
As you can see, my phone's bouncing
Great show.
back in the background.
Have a good week.
Peace out. Bye.
Great show.
Thanks, Kinte. Did you tape it?
Yeah, you got to hit stop record. Stop.